Imagine for a moment that silence is not emptiness, but a hidden language of the soul. Picture a man once confident and rational, now gripped by something he cannot name. When he falls deeply in love, ancient instincts awaken within him, not just tenderness, but the overwhelming burden of being a protector, a provider, the anchor for a future he barely understands. Deep within his unconscious, love does not merely ignite affection, it calls forth old codes of responsibility, duty, and sacrifice, forces he may not yet be ready to bear. Scripture reminds us, perfect love casts out fear, for 1 John 4:18. But before love can purify, it exposes. His withdrawal is not a denial of his feelings, but a survival mechanism. Love demands of him more than mere emotion. It demands transformation, the death of the fragmented ego he once clung to. What you perceive as indifference is often the first stage of an internal storm, where the man fights to reconcile his longing for connection with his terror of inadequacy. In those moments of absence, know this: it is not that you are unworthy. It is that he must face the parts of himself that fear he can never be enough, for you, for the love, for the life that real intimacy requires. His silence carries the weight of generations of men taught to hide, to endure, to suppress. And now, before your heart, he stands disarmed by a feeling he cannot yet contain. If your soul resonates with this truth, leave a comment below saying, "I deserve a conscious love." Because writing your truth is the first sacred act of manifesting the love you were always destined to receive. Beneath the surface of his silence, a hidden war rages, one that he often cannot name or understand. Carl Jung taught that we project onto others what we fail to accept within ourselves. When a man falls in love, the woman becomes more than herself. She becomes the mirror of all he yearns to embrace and all he dreads to confront. In his unconscious, she embodies the Anima, the feminine force he has long exiled from his own heart. She is tenderness, vulnerability, chaos, intuition, all the forbidden colors of his soul that a life of rigid expectations taught him to suppress. It is not the woman herself he fears, but the collapse of the identity he spent a lifetime building. To love her fully would require dismantling the fortress of self-control, stoicism, and independence that once protected him. His rational mind tells him to move forward, but his deeper self, terrified of dissolution, slams the brakes. It is not rejection, it is terror wrapped in longing. Every glance he casts upon her is a collision of two worlds, the world he knows and the world he secretly craves, but cannot yet navigate. The unconscious rebellion against love manifests not through words but through confusion, withdrawal, and emotional paralysis. He is caught in a paradox where the very love that promises to liberate him also threatens to annihilate the only self he has ever known. This is the secret storm behind his distance, and unless he is ready to walk the bridge between his conditioned masculinity and his hidden soul, love will remain for him an impossible burden. In this silent battlefield, every step toward her feels like death to the ego and rebirth to the soul. Yet most men, unprepared for such a profound metamorphosis, retreat to the only sanctuary they know, solitude. They withdraw not to punish the woman, but to protect the fragile remnants of a self that is not yet ready to dissolve into the unknown. Understanding this is the beginning of reclaiming your own peace. What if instead of chasing him, you chose to anchor yourself even deeper into your own being? Because sometimes the greatest act of love is not to follow the one who flees, but to become the one who stays, firm within her own soul. True love is not a peaceful arrival, it is an earthquake. When a man truly connects with a woman, something deeper than attraction stirs within him. It is not just the light of affection that is awakened, it is the trembling of old fears, forgotten wounds, suppressed desires. Carl Jung taught that what remains unconscious controls us without our knowledge, and love, paradoxically, becomes the torch that illuminates everything buried. What he feels is not merely passion, it is the collision between who he is and who he might become, and standing at that threshold terrifies him more than it excites. The woman he loves does not merely represent romance, She becomes the living mirror of his anima, the hidden feminine energy within him that he was taught to deny. Through her, he glimpses tenderness, vulnerability, surrender, qualities that, to a masculine mind conditioned for control and emotional distance, feel dangerous. To truly love her would mean dissolving the barriers that kept his heart armored for so long. In her presence, he sees the possibility of wholeness and the painful awareness of how far from whole he currently stands. It is not rejection that makes him pull away. It is an overwhelming terror of losing himself. His withdrawal, coldness, and silence are not reflections of her inadequacy, but echoes of his own internal disarray. Every step closer to her feels like a step further from the safe, constructed identity he knows. The love he feels awakens a silent war between the part of him that craves union and the part that fears annihilation. He longs for her, yet he fears the death of the man he believed he had to be. This split within him, love against fear, desire against survival, explains the paradoxical behavior that leaves the woman feeling abandoned just when intimacy had deepened. Understanding this shift does not eliminate the pain, but it grants it meaning. His distance is not proof that you are unworthy. It is proof that you touched something so real within him that he could no longer hide from himself. True love is not tidy. It is not polished. It is messy, sacred, and deeply transformative. The man who retreats after loving you deeply is standing at the cliff edge of himself, trembling before the leap that could liberate him or shatter him entirely. And in this trembling, a choice is born, a choice neither you nor your love can make for him. Your task is not to pull him back nor to plead for the connection. Your task is to anchor yourself even more fiercely within your own soul, because the mirror he runs from is also the mirror you must hold up to yourself. The love that awakens your pain is the same love that can awaken your power. Trust that every tear, every silence, every unanswered longing is not a punishment, but a passage. Love demands the courage to walk through shadowlands, knowing that beyond them lies the only kind of union that truly matters, the union with your authentic self. When a man loves deeply but disappears, it is tempting to see his silence as a verdict against your worth. Yet what if distance is not a punishment, but a desperate survival instinct? Carl Jung explained that when unconscious material rises, the ego feels threatened and instinctively defends itself. Love by stirring the forgotten demands a restructuring of the entire psyche, and restructuring is terrifying. When feelings of deep connection begin to tear down the walls he spent his life building, the man may respond not with words, but with retreat, the only defense he knows when faced with the chaos within. Distance becomes, then, an unconscious way to control what feels uncontrollable. By stepping back, by turning cold, he tries to reassert authority over the emotional realm that has slipped through his fingers. He needs to feel, again, like he governs his world, even if that means sabotaging the very connection that awakened his soul. His mind, programmed to associate vulnerability with danger, overrides the voice of his heart. And so he pulls away, not because love diminished, but because love demanded a surrender he is not yet ready to offer. Retreat becomes the illusion of safety in a sea of inner upheaval. Silence is not absence of feeling. It is often the presence of too much feeling, too overwhelming to be processed at once. The man who distances himself is not indifferent. He is drowning in emotions he does not yet know how to navigate. His stillness is an invisible storm. His coldness hides a battlefield where the old self fights against a new, unknown self trying to be born. You are not witnessing apathy. You are witnessing internal paralysis, the deep freeze of a soul caught between longing and fear, between connection and the terror of losing control. Understanding this dynamic is not about excusing emotional immaturity. It is about reclaiming your own clarity. His distance must not become the compass of your self-esteem. If he cannot yet walk the path toward integration, it is not your task to drag him forward. Distance is his choice, but healing is yours. Every time he withdraws, you are invited to return even deeper into your own being, to stop personalizing what belongs to his inner journey, to respect his silence, not as a reflection of your inadequacy, but as a mirror of his unhealed wounds. In the vast spaces he leaves behind, something sacred can be born if you allow it. The temptation will be to chase, to seek answers, to fix what is unraveling. But real power lies in standing still within yourself, in letting the storm pass without being swept away. Remember, love tests not only the heart, but the soul. And sometimes, the most profound act of love is the willingness to release, to trust that what is real will endure, and that what crumbles was never meant to imprison you in the first place. In the mirror of love, you reflect not only his light, but also his chaos. When he draws near and then recoils, it is not simply about his fear, it is about what you awaken in him and what he awakens in you. Carl Jung teaches that relationships are alchemical crucibles where two souls meet, not to complete each other, but to reveal hidden aspects within. You are not just the beloved, you are the mirror of his tenderness, his suppressed longings, and his unresolved fears. And he, unknowingly, becomes the mirror of your own forgotten wounds, your own silent expectations, your yearning to be seen without disappearing into another. When he retreats, the temptation is to see only betrayal. Yet his distance also reveals something deeper within you, the desire to be chosen, the fear of abandonment, the fantasy that love must be earned through suffering. His silence, painful as it is, calls forth ancient scripts written long before he appeared. Childhood wounds, ancestral patterns, dreams of unconditional acceptance, all surface through the mirror he unknowingly holds before you. He may be trapped in his storm, but you too are invited into the sacred work of seeing yourself more clearly. The woman who awakens in this process does not deny her pain, but she refuses to be defined by it. She understands that her worth is not measured by another's ability to stay. She listens to the ache without letting it command her destiny. She realizes that love's mirror shows not only the beloved's struggle, but her own need for inner wholeness. In his absence, she is called not to collapse, but to rise, not to chase, but to anchor, not to beg for love, but to embody the very love she seeks. This is the sacred task hidden within the heartbreak. If these words are opening something inside you, write in the comments, "I choose myself, even in silence." Because writing is not just an action, it is the first manifestation of your new reality. When you declare your worth, the universe listens. And so, the mirror no longer becomes a source of endless longing, but a gateway to freedom. His silence no longer imprisons you. It initiates you. In seeing what love awakens within you, the beautiful and the broken, you reclaim the power to heal what no external presence could ever fulfill. You stop waiting for permission to be whole. You become it. Pain has a peculiar way of opening doors that love alone sometimes cannot. When he withdraws, when his absence becomes louder than his presence, the woman faces an awakening she never chose, but desperately needed. The silence forces her into spaces she spent years trying to avoid. It presses against every wound she carries, the longing to be seen, the fear of abandonment, the ache of not being enough. And yet, within this excruciating tenderness, lies an invitation that only those who dare to confront themselves can accept, the invitation to become whole without needing to be completed. Carl Jung taught that individuation, the process of becoming oneself, often begins with crisis. Not with answers, not with the perfect relationship, but with loss, confusion, and the crumbling of illusions. When the woman faces the man's silence, she faces her own projections too. He may have represented the savior, the father she wished she had, the partner who would erase all her doubts. His disappearance shatters these myths, leaving behind not emptiness, but truth. The painful truth that no one outside of herself could ever rescue her from the sacred task of self-healing. It is tempting to believe that if she had been more patient, more beautiful, more perfect, he would have stayed. This is the echo of old wounds speaking, not the voice of her soul. The soul knows that true love does not demand self-erasure. True love does not thrive in the soil of self-abandonment. When she stops trying to perform for love, to chase what retreats, she begins to reclaim the parts of herself she unknowingly gave away. Her worth was never negotiable. Her value was never dependent on his readiness to meet her where she stands. And as she gathers the scattered pieces of her heart, she realizes something astonishing. The pain was never meant to destroy her. It was meant to dismantle everything false, everything borrowed, everything that told her she had to earn love through suffering. His silence becomes her teacher. His withdrawal becomes her mirror. His inability to stay becomes the birthplace of her ability to stay with herself, to love herself fiercely, even when no one else is watching, even when no one else comes to fill the silence. This painful awakening transforms her from a seeker of validation into a sovereign soul. No longer does she beg for breadcrumbs of affection. No longer does she lose herself in the tides of someone else's chaos. She rises, not in bitterness, not in cynicism, but in clarity. She sees that love, real love, begins where self-betrayal ends. And in choosing herself, she does not close her heart to love. She makes herself ready for a love that matches her depth, her truth, and her sacred worth. Silence, when embraced consciously, becomes a crucible of transformation. It ceases to be the enemy and reveals itself as the sacred space where illusions die and truth is born. In the absence of his words, in the emptiness left by his retreat, the woman is not abandoned by life. She is being led into herself. Carl Jung spoke of necessary confrontations with the unconscious, and few confrontations are more powerful than standing alone in the silence of a love that could not stay. Here, she no longer negotiates her worth through another's gaze. She confronts her loneliness, her longing, her unspoken fears, and ultimately her unbreakable essence. Instead of seeking answers outside, she begins to listen within. The mind that once asked, "Why is he ignoring me?" evolves into the soul asking, "What in me needed his presence to feel complete?" This shift is subtle yet revolutionary. It turns pain into wisdom. It transforms waiting into awakening. The silence no longer signals defeat. It becomes a mirror reflecting the areas where her love for herself was conditional, where her self-trust faltered. The woman who endures silence with awareness does not shrink. She expands. She learns that emotional storms do not destroy those who have built their roots deep within. Stillness, rather than stagnation, becomes a form of sacred movement, inward, deeper, truer. As she refuses to chase, to plead, to shrink, she alchemizes the pain into power. She rewrites the story that says love must be a battlefield or a transaction. She reclaims her own heart as sacred ground, a place that no absence can diminish, no silence can erase. From this space, she no longer fears loss, because she has found the one thing that cannot be lost, herself. Silence no longer defines her, it refines her. The woman who grows in silence does not close her heart to love. She prepares her heart for a love that does not require her to disappear. She no longer projects her worth onto another's actions. She stands sovereign, capable of giving and receiving love from fullness, not lack. Silence teaches her patience, self-respect, and the beauty of timing aligned with truth. She understands that what is real will never require the abandonment of self, and so she chooses herself, again and again, not as a consolation prize, but as a sacred vow to her soul. The greatest alchemy occurs not when love is easy, but when love demands that we confront every place within us that is not yet free. In silence, she meets herself fully for the first time. She stops waiting for someone to choose her and realizes she was always the one she was waiting for. In embracing the emptiness left behind, she fills it with her own light. The silence that once felt like death becomes the birthplace of a self so radiant, so whole, that no absence could ever diminish her again. Behind his withdrawal lies a battlefield that few ever see. The man who loves yet distances himself is not heartless. He is torn. Carl Jung revealed that the unconscious holds the wounds we refuse to face, and love, especially profound love, rips open those sealed chambers. When the man feels genuine affection, it is not only warmth that rises, but also terror. Terror of being vulnerable, of surrendering the rigid mask he built to survive, of exposing emotions that his upbringing taught him to fear. His struggle is not with the woman before him, but with the unhealed boy inside, crying for freedom yet paralyzed by fear. Society often conditions men to equate strength with emotional silence, control with worthiness. To show vulnerability feels like annihilation. Thus, when intimacy beckons him to lower his armor, his entire identity resists. Love demands he face his shadow, the insecurities, the unspoken griefs, the unhealed betrayals. And not every man is ready for that sacred dismantling. Retreat, then, becomes not a rational choice but an unconscious necessity. To preserve the persona he knows, he must escape the love that threatens to dissolve him into something unknown, something terrifyingly real. This internal conflict manifests outwardly as silence, coldness, avoidance, behaviors that pierce the heart of the woman left behind. But in truth, he is running from himself, not from her. Each moment of absence is a testament to his internal disarray. He loves, but love demands surrender. He desires connection, but connection demands exposure. Torn between longing and terror, he often chooses the illusion of safety over the risk of transformation. And until he chooses otherwise, until he willingly descends into his own darkness, no external effort can pull him back into wholeness. Understanding this inner war grants the woman a sacred clarity. His behavior is not a mirror of her inadequacy, but a mirror of his internal fragmentation. Her task is not to mend him, not to soften her boundaries in hope that he will stay, but to honor her own heart's wisdom. She realizes that some men leave, not because the love is weak, but because the internal walls they must tear down are fortified by lifetimes of conditioning. She learns to grieve the dream without collapsing her own soul. She learns to love herself even through the echoes of another's unfinished battles. In seeing his struggle clearly, she stops personalizing his disappearance. She mourns, she heals, but she does not betray herself in the process. His silence, his distance, his hesitation, they belong to him. Her heart, her journey, her healing, they belong to her. In understanding the inner masculine struggle, the woman steps into a new dimension of love, one where compassion and boundaries coexist, one where she loves with open arms, but also with a soul rooted firmly in its own worth. There comes a moment when the woman, tired of chasing ghosts, awakens to her own presence. She realizes that love was never about being chosen by another. It was about choosing herself. In the silent spaces he left behind, she plants seeds of new life. Carl Jung reminds us that the journey to wholeness begins when we turn inward, no longer seeking validation outside, but recognizing the divine completeness already within. This awakening is not born from bitterness, it is born from clarity. She does not harden, she deepens. She does not close her heart, she purifies it from the illusions that once chained it to suffering. Presence is not about standing still for someone who is running, it is about standing firmly within oneself. As the woman anchors into her essence, she no longer needs to beg for attention or decode silences. She sees his absence not as a reflection of her value, but as evidence of her soul's expansion beyond the spaces where she once settled for less. Her energy shifts, silently, powerfully. She becomes a mirror too strong to be shattered by another's confusion, a field too luminous to be dimmed by another's fear. She understands now. Real love does not cause her to shrink, it inspires her to rise. This rising is not loud, it is not vengeful. It is the sacred, quiet rebellion of a soul remembering its infinite worth. She no longer chases love across deserts of silence. She calls it to her through the resonance of her own healing, and if love comes, it finds her whole. If it does not, she remains whole. Her fulfillment is no longer conditional. Her happiness is no longer postponed. In claiming her presence, she claims her power, not the power to control outcomes, but the power to remain undiminished by them. The awakened woman's light does not depend on who stays or who leaves. She shines because it is her nature to shine. She knows that love that demands her disappearance is not love. It is attachment masquerading as devotion. She chooses love that honors presence, love that stands still in the storm, love that sees without trying to possess. And in choosing herself, she invites the universe to mirror back the same unwavering presence she now holds within. The world responds not to her longing but to her becoming. True presence is magnetic. It draws to itself not what is desperate but what is destined. As she lives from her center, she ceases to orbit around others. She becomes the sun in her own sky. Those who are ready, who have done their own inner work, will find their way to her, not because she chased them, but because she became a beacon. And in that space, love ceases to be a battlefield. It becomes what it was always meant to be, a meeting of two sovereign souls complete and radiant in their wholeness. There is a sacred power in choosing yourself over the uncertainty of another's silence. In the moments when his distance threatens to hollow you out, remember, you are not waiting for his return. You are witnessing your own rebirth. Carl Jung taught that fate is not something imposed from without, but something emerging from within when we ignore our inner truths. Choosing yourself is not abandoning love. It is aligning with the deepest kind of love, the one that refuses to let you betray your own soul for someone else's confusion. You do not wait in despair. You walk forward in grace. Choosing yourself does not mean closing your heart to connection. It means closing your heart to illusion. It means no longer making your worth negotiable based on who stays and who goes. It means seeing his disappearance not as a reflection of your insufficiency, but as a necessary pruning, a cutting away of everything not aligned with the love your soul was always destined to experience. When you choose yourself, you step into a timeline where love finds you because you no longer search for it in places where it cannot thrive. You do not become harder. You become truer. You do not lose your softness. You sanctify it. Every tear shed in the silence he left behind becomes the water that nourishes your new life. You understand now that real love does not ask you to abandon yourself. Real love comes when you have stopped abandoning yourself first. It meets you at the altar of your own authenticity. It recognizes you not by your willingness to suffer, but by your willingness to stand whole, radiant, and unashamed of the vastness within you. If this journey has awakened something sacred inside you, do not let it end here. Subscribe to our channel and continue this journey into the mysteries of the human soul. There is a whole universe within you still waiting to be explored, and we are here to walk beside you every step of the way. Your healing is not a solitary road. It is a path lit by countless souls rising together into deeper awareness, deeper love, and deeper truth. You belong here, among those who choose growth over fear. Click on the video appearing on your screen now, and dive even deeper into the hidden realms of love, consciousness, and self-discovery. The journey does not end with silence. It begins with presence. And your presence, awakened and unwavering, is the greatest gift you will ever offer to yourself and to the world.